So whenever I first started mixing, there were two rules I thought I knew. Whenever you record, you put an EQ on your track, and then after that, you put a compressor. Not only was that wrong, because that is not always the case, and while I did know how to carve an EQ, I did not really know what the compressor was doing. See, I made the horrible decision that because the compressor was louder, and I was told that a compressor should be on your track, that it was better. This thought process is not good, and you could be doing the exact same thing and blowing out all of your tracks. So that leads us into the discussion of what exactly is compression. In front of you, you have two of the exact same waveforms, one of which is compressed and one of them uncompressed. Now with the compressed one, the bright pink one, we see a lot of peaks and valleys where the song itself has a higher dynamic range or a lower dynamic range. So in the bottom example, I used a really extreme form of compression. And this is basically just to highlight what exactly compression does. Throughout the entire track, you're seeing essentially the same level of volume along the waveform. It's squashing the signals, so the quieter and the louder parts of the waveform are the exact same volume. In essence, compression lowers the dynamic range of your song or of your track. And in extreme cases like this, you get these sausage boys where they're just one big old long tube. Just to give you an example of how this works, I've chopped up the two waveforms so we're switching between the compressed signal and the non-compressed signal. Keep in mind, this is not what a compressor truly sounds like. This is exaggerated to the extreme so you can hear the results. Look at the tail of the uncompressed version of the clip. It fades away because as no instrument plays, the instruments fade into a lower volume level. Because the compressor is acting as aggressively as it possibly can, we get the same amount of volume level even when there's no instrument playing. Again, extreme example, but it shows you what a compressor can do. Now, as a general rule, there are two different kinds of compressors. There are compressors that color your signal, and then there are transparent compressors. Colored compressors are going to add harmonic content. It's going to make your sound, in theory, richer and nicer, and oftentimes they're emulating old hardware compressors from back in the day. One really common one is the LA2A or the 1176. In theory, transparent compressors should not color your signal at all. They should only boost the signals that need to be boosted and subtract the signals that need to be subtracted until you're left with an even waveform. Today, we're going to be looking at transparent compressors for a couple of reasons. They follow a consistent pattern, which means they typically have very similar controls, and also a lot of them have graphic interfaces in their plugins, which is going to help us understand what compressors actually do. With compressors, there are a few basic components: the threshold, the ratio, the attack, the release, and the makeup gain. The first and the most important one is the ratio. When you see ratios, they're going to show up as one number, a colon, and then another number. The left number is the input, and the right number is the output. The right number or the output is always going to be 1, and the left number or the input is the one that changes. If we have a 4:1 ratio, that means we're going to put in 4 decibels and we're going to get out 1 decibel. That means if we have a 1:1 ratio, nothing is happening. As 1 decibel goes in, 1 decibel comes out. Therefore, the ratio is the strength of your compression. Threshold pertains to at what volume you want that ratio to start acting. This is going to be more clearly exhibited when we look at the compressor itself. Now, attack is how quickly in milliseconds you want your compressor to begin working. Now, release is also in milliseconds, and it's how quickly your compressor lets go. A higher release means the compressor is happening for a longer period of time. Finally, makeup gain. Essentially, makeup gain is meant to push your signal back up to the start after we compress all that signal down. Unlike with EQ, compressor is a little bit more subjective. There are a few things that should in general always be followed though. It's called makeup gain for a reason. You should not put more gain into the output of a compressor than what you originally got in. It is only meant to match the signal that you put into the original compressor. So let's look at a few examples here. This is going to be our compressor that we're working with. It's from Waves. It's called the C1. Typically, a graphic compressor comes with any DAW, so just find your own specific one. This is a vocal taken from an old video, the SMB versus the Rode NT1. If you want to check it out, if you want to see those mics compared, I will link it later. Here's the voice with no compression on it at all. If you notice, we're peaking around the negative 20 dB mark. This is just where our volume is falling. The compressor is not actually doing anything at the moment. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to set the ratio to 4:1. This is a pretty normal ratio for mild compression. Nothing happened yet. We set the ratio, but we did not tell the compressor where we want that ratio to begin taking effect. If we remember, the threshold is where we decide we want the ratio to begin compressing. If I pull the ratio down, look at the line. Where this hump is, that's where the compression is starting. We can see we have a linear line of compression, and then all of a sudden, where that 4:1 ratio is happening, we are taking 4 dBs and we're subtracting it down to 1 dB. So if I set my ratio to really low like this, we're killing a lot of signal. This is not what I would recommend whenever you're using a compressor. What I would typically do, observe where the signal is actually falling. Then center your ratio around that level. So I'm going to put it around right here. So right where she's peaking, we're touching the compression on her voice. So I can then go in and I can set the attack and the release for how long I want her voice to be compressed. Now this is a little difficult to demonstrate on vocals, but I'm going to try anyways. Essentially, you want to basically put the release on an average about how long her words are, her timing. That sounds pretty good to me. Now, if we take the compressor off, that peak there is a lot louder. We've taken the peak of her vocals and we've lowered it. Next thing I want to do is I want to set the makeup gain so we can make it just as loud as it was before. Just the signals themselves are going to be closer together. What we've just done is we've taken the gain, set it back to its original volume level, but the peaks are now closer to the average level of her vocal. So whenever we do this on a clinical level, the peaks of the vocal themselves don't quite hurt our ears as much. But more than that, compression adds a little bit of flavor to the track as well. It tends to bring out the breathiness of a vocal a lot, and it makes it a lot smoother. Compression can be a very valuable tool, but can also very easily be overdone. So please use it wisely. Anyways, I hope this was helpful. If you have any questions, let me know. If I need to go into more detail about specific things, let me know. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed, and I will see you in the next video.